Hey,
What's up?
everybody. Welcome back to the Deconversionists. What's up, Elliot?
Not much. How are you?
Good, man. It's like the first time we've done this in like 4 weeks, I think, together.
Yeah, pretty much. At least two, I think.
Yeah, well, I think you were out for 2, and then I was out for 1. So I don't think we did it together.
Was I out for two?
Yeah, you were out for 2, and then I was out for 1.
Oh, that's right. Because we switched days of the week, and
Yeah.
I unfortunately had a conflict on the second week because we switched.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
But we're good now.
We are. I mean, it's like I don't even know who you are anymore. I mean, I feel like it's been so long. We need to like be friends again. I don't even know what happened, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, we could do totally new introductions to each other.
Totally new, man. I'm like, who are you?
I'm a former Christian, but a Christian for 35 years. Blah blah blah.
Wow, 35 years. Okay, great. That's really good, man. It's so good to meet you. It's like I've never met you before in my life. Wow, man, I tell you, 3 weeks is a long time. But anyway, in the meantime, we both had some really freaking awesome shows. I got to do a show with Jim Barrows. I got to do a show with Ember. You got to do a show with what's her name? Say it again.
Felicia.
Yes, thank you, Felicia. And that show rocked. Oh my gosh, dude, I freaking loved it. I watched that back and I was just like, oh my gosh, it was so good. So yeah, so anyways, it turns out that sometimes when we're not together, good things happen.
Well, yeah, we both got to see how much better the show is without ourselves. So maybe we can just turn it over to the people that subbed for us and we can move on with our lives.
There you go. Going forward, the Deconversionists with Alan and Elliot without us there. That's perfect. Because you know what? While everybody else is going to be running the show, you and I are going to be focused on eternity, Elliot, because that's what matters.
And is that what's on your mind tonight?
Yes. I am very concerned that if I do not live for eternity, that my life will be a waste.
A complete waste.
Complete waste, Elliot.
It's rather than making it more valuable.
Yeah. I don't know, Elliot. Maybe you have some advice for me, because I'm thinking if I don't have some sort of eternal hope that I get to live for, I mean, what's there to live for? I don't even understand. Like, it's just completely pointless and wasted life. Maybe you have some advice for me.
You should just end it right now. Yeah. It's like in the same way that I didn't bother eating breakfast this morning because I knew I would just have to eat lunch and dinner too. So like, what's the point? So I just gave up eating.
Huh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, total sense.
That's the same sense that it makes to not bother living your life if you don't get eternity.
Yeah, I see that. So keep living for eternity. That's the moral of the story.
Is that the moral of the story?
I mean,
is that what we want to do?
You know what the moral of this story might be. I'm trying to figure out why your lips aren't matte. It's like you're a Chinese movie right now. I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know if it's you or me.
Oh, is there some lag?
There was. I think we might have caught up. Say, is there some lag again?
Is there some lag?
No, but it was really fun to see you say that twice.
Okay.
So
it might be because I've got this thing in the way, and I could be talking. You just don't know it.
That is true. That could be it. But anyway, for what it's worth, there is no more lag. We are back on track. Thank goodness, because eternity is in the balance, Elliot.
It is.
If we do not have eternal life, we have nothing to live for.
So the other half of that question is, do you even want eternal life?
Wow. What a good question. I was just thinking about that today. Do I even want eternal life? What's that?
I said, I bet you were.
Yeah, I was.
What was your conclusion? Do you want to live forever?
My conclusion was, hell no.
Hell no.
Hell no. I actually do not want to live forever. I mean, like, all right, so for starters, what if it turned out, like, since we don't know anything about what eternal life would be like, what if it turned out to be freaking horrible? like the worst possible thing you can imagine, and you're stuck in that forever. That does not sound like something hopeful. I mean, everybody talks, Christians like to talk about Pascal's wager. It's better to, prepare for eternity, live for Jesus just in case, because, if you don't, then, you automatically have this worst case scenario. But if you do, at least there's a chance you got it right, But I mean, that's the problem with Pascal's wager, is it doesn't really work like that, because we don't really know what the afterlife is. We don't really know whether the God you're worshiping is the true God. Pascal's wager is based on a wager. Exactly that. It's like, you don't know. So it's all a bunch of guesswork. So, when you think about eternity, it's like, all right, maybe you want to bet on the eternity, but what if the eternity sucks? I don't want that. Maybe if it's really bad and it's from some demon type God that just loves evil all the time and wants nothing but the most abhorrent things to happen to people, which sounds a lot like Yahweh, then if that's what eternity is like, I think I'd rather be obliterated and no longer live forever. That's just my opinion. But what do you think?
Well, you're kind of making the Christian's case for them in a way when you say that, because they would say you need to bet on the gospel, because if you are wrong and you get this terrible eternal future, that future is hell. So you're sentencing yourself to the terrible eternity that you were trying to avoid in the first place.
Sure.
And the other problem is that, we could make these wagers all day, whether we are going to go with Christianity or go with something else, and to try to avoid the eternity future that we don't want. But in the end, like, it's not up to us and our wager at all. It's either true or it's not true. And there's really nothing we can do about it.
That is true. There's nothing we can do about it. But I mean,
if it comes down to a preference, though, if we could pick it, like, would you pick the eternal future that you want, or are you against immortality just in general?
I think now I am against it. I would not want to live forever anymore. Like, once upon a time I did, and to maybe go against your point and also make your point at the same time. Yes, the Christian would say that, yes, believe the gospel, or the alternative is, eternal suffering. But the problem with the wager is you actually don't know. Like there's no way you can possibly know what the future is. So you're wagering your eternal life on something that you think is good, because that's what you've decided in your mind is the good wager, but you really can't know. So since you can't know, it's not really a good wager. Like you're basing it on what you want it to be, but that doesn't mean what you're basing it on you want it to be is what it will be. You have no idea. So since we can't know, as you said, so from that perspective, I would say, I mean, to me, the 50-50, it's not that awesome. I mean, to do it forever and ever and ever, if it's this really like, what if hell, like this idea of the lake of fire and burning forever, the Christian hell that people talk about, what if that ends up being eternity for everybody, no matter what? I mean, since we don't know, what if that's the case? And if it is, would anybody want that? I imagine no. I'd rather just like cease to exist. I don't really want to live like that, being torn. I mean, think about eternity, dude. Like, just that thought, it's just like insane. But then if you think about the positive side of it, heaven, think about all the views that we have of heaven. They all suck. Like, they're boring as hell. They're mundane. There's nothing fun about them. It's like you're either singing choir choruses forever and ever, to Jesus, playing harps forever, playing sports that you never can fail at anymore. You're just perfect at everything. Like what, or you're just this ethereal existence that has no mind. You just basically love God mindlessly because you're just ethereally just living. None of it makes any sense. None of it sounds fun. It's like, and if you are mindless and just living in this ethereal space, then it really doesn't matter anyway, because it's not like you're there and you're present and you have a personhood anymore. You're just doing what you're supposed to do and just, living for God the way he commands anyhow. He's like, so I don't know. It's just like nothing about heaven sounds exciting. So I can't fathom any scenario in which an eternal state sounds fun, exciting, joyous, delightful, or desirable. Not to me, anyway. Maybe you have a different opinion.
So I did think about this today in preparation for this episode, and I came to the conclusion that yeah, in a certain way, immortality could seem like hell, regardless of what the future would be. The idea that you're unable to die, you're unable to quit. But if being annihilated or dying permanently is the other option, I suppose maybe I'd go against the grain here and I'd say, yes, I would rather have immortality and live forever. Because if I can live through one day and make it through the day and find it acceptable and not want to die, then I could probably make it through an infinite number of days, unless something goes terribly wrong with my perspective, I guess. If I don't want to die today, why would I want to die after 1,000 years? It's kind of like, if you can endure it and it's better than the alternative of not experiencing anything whatsoever, I suppose on balance, I probably would pick immortality. Now, if I ended up in some kind of weird reality where I was indeed suffering forever, obviously I would rather be annihilated. But to simply, say in the simplest terms, you're for or against the idea of immortality, I guess I would pick immortality, because the idea of not existing is just as hard to wrap the human brain around as the idea of an infinite reality.
So you proposed the possibility of both there. You could end up being in this horrible, horrid state forever or a good state forever, and you just don't know. So my question is for you, is the wager worth living for eternity if it's a 50-50 flip of the coin, that it could be absolutely horrible, the worst possible scenario for eternity that you can never, ever possibly escape, or a 50-50 chance that it could be eternal bliss, or you just die and don't have to take a chance either way, but you just don't ever remember it and it doesn't freaking matter. You live the best life you can now and then it's over. Like, is it worth it to you to take that 50-50 chance if you had it?
Probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, that was the point I was making. Like, to me, I'm like, no way. Like, I don't care how good the 50-50 alternative is to being, being good. Like, it's just not worth it. Like, I'd rather just be like, no, fuck that. I'm done. Like, just end it when you end it, and that's it.
But there are a very large number of people that give in to their survival instincts and will suffer through a really tough life, including very serious medical conditions that cause suffering on a daily basis, and they will stick it out, and they would rather exist and continue to experience something rather than just die. And it's I don't know if that speaks to the strength of our survival instincts, but I know that's not necessarily hell. Obviously, burning forever in a lake of fire would not be preferable for anyone if it's literal torture. But there's a lot of people that are being nearly tortured on a daily basis, and they would rather keep living because the choice is to not have any experience whatsoever, to be snuffed out. I just don't think that the human mind is equipped to comprehend what it's like to not exist. It's just, in my opinion, it's just as hard to wrap your mind around that than to imagine like an infinite amount of time that never ends. Like, they're both not something that we're equipped to understand.
Yeah.
But I would not take that wager. No, I think I would opt for non-existence rather than flip a coin and be tortured for eternity.
Yes. Well, that would be my choice as well. However, being that we're talking about reality, I'm not sure that even deciding which we prefer is an option. As far as we can tell, we don't actually have that option. As far as we can tell, immortality isn't a thing. It has been a lie that has been perpetuated in the mind of those of faith who have been taught that God exists and has this great eternal life for you, or for the alternative, for those who disobey, that eternal death and punishment forever, whatever that may look like for those who see that view. But we have no good reason to think there is an afterlife. There's no way to evaluate it. There's no way to test it. There's no way to know that whether or not this eternal being called God is telling us the truth. We know nothing, if he even exists. We know nothing about it. So my reason for titling this episode "Immortality is a Destructive Lie," while fun to discuss what we would prefer if we had the option, it's to actually discuss how pretty much everybody who lives for eternal life wastes their life here now, because their concern is only what matters for eternity rather than what matters for you now. And that to me is a bigger concern. That's the grave concern for me, because I know when I was a Christian and I was living for eternity, boy, Elliot, there were so many things that I suppressed in my life that I could not enjoy, because if I did, I might sacrifice eternity. And dude, like after 42 years of that shit, I was just like, when I finally woke up and I was like, what am I doing? The whole escape from Christianity. The things that I got to experience ever since being a Christian has just been awesome. Like just even knowing that if I wanted to experience stuff I haven't even experienced yet, that I can, and there's no eternal consequences for it. Like I can just do stuff because I want to do stuff. It's absolutely mind blowing. I don't know. You might want to speak to that too, because you were a Christian too for a long time.
Yeah, and it's interesting how we have very different perspectives on this and different experiences, because I don't really do anything differently now that I'm an atheist. I don't experience anything that I wasn't able to experience before. In fact, it's one of my arguments against Christianity is what I call the problem of Christians. And while you might think, well, that just speaks to the hypocrisy of Christians, it actually speaks to a lot more than that. Christians often give the excuse or the rationalization of, oh, you left Christianity because you just wanted to sin. And that implies that you weren't able to sin while you're a Christian, or at least you weren't able to do it guilt-free. But my claim is that people don't change almost at all when they're Christians versus not Christians. They do all exactly the same things that they would do if they weren't a Christian, or they continue to do the same things that they did before they were a Christian. Like, it really doesn't change a whole lot. Obviously, it changed a lot for you, but it didn't change at all for me. Like, all the things that you could classify as sin, where you might have that guilt, engaging in them as a Christian, like, I might have stopped doing a lot of those things for a time as a Christian, especially when I had my big salvation experience when I was 33. But those things slowly drifted back anyway. And in the grand scheme of things, they weren't really a big deal in the first place. And that's why I think a lot of Christians just keep on doing them anyway. For example, let's take probably the big, the big three. One would be like so-called sexual sin. Another one would be consuming things that Christianity is supposed to be against, like getting drunk or doing drugs. And the third one would be like your speech, cursing. Like non-Christians are notorious for using foul language. Those are three things that Christians do at exactly the same rates as non-Christians. Like, statistically, there's no difference. In fact, we often hear about the sexual immorality one in the news all the time. How many youth pastors or mainstream pastors are being caught engaging in some sort of sexual immorality, whether it's cheating on their wife, or it's sexual assaulting children, or it's getting caught in a gay affair when they're a Southern Baptist. They're supposed to be against that. Like, they get caught pretty regularly, and it makes the news quite often. Like, they're doing exactly the things that they claim that they shouldn't be doing. So the only thing that it might remove after leaving the faith would be the guilt aspect. And clearly the guilt that you might feel as a Christian is not enough to keep you from doing those things regularly. you still do them. So the guilt is kind of irrelevant. So I didn't leave Christianity so that I could start sinning or start sinning guilt-free. It would have had no bearing on my daily life, even at maybe not the height of my faith experience, but just in daily life, it just had no bearing. I would have done them anyway and felt guilty, or not felt guilty. It didn't matter. So is it too personal of a thing for you to get into what exactly you are experiencing now that you weren't able to as a Christian?
Sure. No, that's fine. We can talk about it. So number one, just to clarify, because you had said that had no bearing on you leaving Christianity. You didn't leave to go sin. Neither did I. I'm not suggesting that I was like, man, I'm tired of this holy life. I'm going to go live a sinful life. That had no bearing whatsoever on my decision to become an atheist. Like ever did it cross my mind that, boy, if I just wasn't a Christian, I could go sin and not feel guilty. That wasn't at all anything at all. My whole reason for leaving Christianity had literally to do with one thing. I had no good reason to believe that God existed anymore. Like that was it, period. No other reason. I didn't run to sin. I literally just ran from this belief system that had no grounds. So that was, simply said and done. I also don't think sin is a thing. I think that was something invented by religion, especially Christianity, as it pervades the mind, and you are taught that certain things are sinful and you just can't do this stuff. If you do these things, then it's sinful. And it depends on what home you're raised in or what church you go to. Like, certain swear words are sin, or, some places believe playing cards are sin, or, God forbid you watch a porn flick, that's sin, whatever it may be. So all these things, and or you masturbate, to whatever, these types of things, these are sinful acts. And so they are condemned by God, because there's, when you no longer have that in that thought process infiltrating your mind, you don't think in those terms. You no longer are sitting around feeling guilty for things that you have no reason to feel guilty for. There are many things that are just natural to human nature that we were taught as Christians that are sinful. And so we carried around a lot of guilt and shame for doing those things. So, we already talked about the sexual ones. I can't tell you how many times for 42 years of my life, I lived in perpetual shame and guilt all the time. Every time I had a lustful thought, like it was just beating myself up and constantly hurting, weeping. Ridiculous, dude. Like I can't even believe how many times I had to experience that. It was such a suppressing model, degrading myself for doing something that was just a human experience, but degrading myself to a point where I was a wicked, horrible, no good, rotten sinner, deserving of eternal punishment in hell, or whatever the eternal punishment was, just because I had a lustful thought. Like freaking ridiculous. Like it is absolutely mindful. I don't understand why religion has made sexual issues such a sinful thing. Like I don't understand why they did that. Like it's so controlling.
I can understand why they did it. It's a product of evolutionary psychology. Like if our prime directive is reproduction, that's what evolution has given us for our primary motivation. Therefore, it's going to be like the most important thing. And sexual activity is what controls reproduction. And so the maximum amount of power that you can have over someone or over a population is to control sexual activity. And so we see religion most of the time wanting to keep sexual activity like monogamous and within marriage and for the purposes of reproduction. And that makes 100% sense if you're putting it in the context of our prime directive being reproduction. So they're co-opting something from evolution, and they're taking it as their own, and they're saying, hey, this is the correct way by natural law or from God, and so you cannot like deviate from this correct way. To do so is literally a crime against God, because God has given us sex for reproduction within marriage. So it makes perfect sense that they would want to control it and restrict it. And so anything that falls outside of that normative structure is going to be seen as some ultimate evil, worse than any other kind of sin that you can do, because you're perverting something that has been specifically designed by God for a very specific purpose. So it makes sense to me. Obviously, nature has like shown us that structure is not consistent. People have a lot of different sexual attributes that don't fall within that rubric. A large percentage of the population is homosexual. So clearly, according to nature, it's not deviant, but obviously religion is going to try to restrict it because it becomes a power game.
Yeah. Well, and something you said earlier about even Christians continue to do things like sexual sin. We see it all the time, and then they live with the guilt of it or whatever. So while I don't see the parallel of sin being a thing anymore, I do think that morality calls for an upholding of an agreement that you make with your partner in any sort of relationship, whatever that agreement may be. If you're in a relationship where you all agree to an open relationship, that's fine. That's what you agreed to. Obviously, in Christianity, that's just condemned right out, outright. Like, that's just sin. It's ridiculous, but that's what it does, and it needs to control you every step of the way. But if you're in a marriage or any sort of partnership where it's monogamous and you're supposed to just be one-on-one and just the two of you, and that's what you agreed to, then I would consider it immoral to break that boundary. It's not sin, but it's immoral. It's something that you agree to and you shouldn't do. Now, if you want to discuss it, maybe you've evolved and you've learned or you've changed, and over the years you've developed a new thinking because you're now an atheist or whatever. You can go and you talk to your spouse. You say, hey, here's where I'm at. Can we discuss this? Hopefully your spouse is open to a discussion, and still nothing may change. And then you just gotta be willing to live with what you agree to. But that may change also. You may both agree to, try new things. But, sexuality is just a gigantic thing that Christianity has defined it as only one way, and it has to be this way. And if you break this boundary, and because of that, it's just infiltrated our minds so much. And I think it's permeated the minds of Americans, especially, so much, even, for non-Christians, that we just have come to believe this idea that, the only right way is to be married, to live with one, somebody of the opposite sex. And that's the only way. And then, like, even people who come out of Christianity, they're still stuck in this idea that, gay is wrong, whatever. And it's just, you just can't live with that. But, it's just, or multiple partners are wrong. So there's just so much to be said about that, and even there's a lot of views in Christianity that even teach that the whole purpose of being married in a relationship is to produce children. And if you're not doing that, then sex is, useless, as if you just can't have sex just to have sex. Like,
right.
There's a sect in that. It's just like, so yeah, I mean, one of the things that 42 years, and it makes me sad, like, I did not experience any form of intimacy sexually prior to being married. And so you're supposed to just like withhold this every step of the way and live pure. I even did the promise ring and the silver ring thing. I don't remember if you remember those back in the day. Yeah. Absolute horrible purity culture. It just sucks, dude. So I went through all that. And then on your wedding night, you're supposed to just flip the switch. And then just magically, you're just going to be good at sex and just do this thing. That didn't work for me, man. It didn't happen in our marriage. And it was very, very frustrating. So yeah, I mean, like, it absolutely is a horrid way to live. I think this idea, and unfortunately, sticking with our theme, eternal life is in the balance. Sexuality is one of these sins that could cost you your eternal life, right, if you don't live right. So
how old were you when you got married?
I was 22.
Oh, so it still happened early for you.
I still got married early.
Yeah, I mean, you started to have sex earlier.
I mean, that's a whole story in itself, but not necessarily. No, there are a lot of couples that get married and sex just doesn't happen right away. No.
Okay, but like that would have been, you said you didn't have sex until you got married, but it would have normally have happened for you at 22 when you got married.
in theory. That doesn't necessarily mean I had sex when I got married.
No, I get that. So ironically for me, and I'm kind of bitter about this. So I didn't have sex until I got married. Well, until a couple of months before I got married, but I didn't get married until 35. So I like missed out on all of that for like the majority of my good years, all of my 20s. And if that's one thing that that religion did do that to me. And if I could have gone back, I would have done that obviously much, much differently. Like I had opportunities for having sex before I got married in my 20s, but like I purposefully avoided them because it was immoral. And, you know, it really puts you behind the curve later in life and you miss out on a lot of stuff. The frustrating thing is that I got married the same year I became an atheist. So there was no opportunity to actually go and do those things. Like I got married 6 months later, I left Christianity. Too late. I'm already married.
Right.
And now I'm locked into a monogamous relationship that I'm not going to violate anyway, even if I am an atheist.
Correct.
And that's another argument for against this. Oh, you left Christianity just so you could sin. No, because even as an atheist, I was not going to engage in like unmonogamous behavior. Like I'm locked in.
No,
so I still have that I guess you can call it morality. I just call it ethics.
Yeah.
Or just caring about somebody.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you, and I agree with that 100%. Like, and I don't even understand the Christian who thinks you need God to tell you that that's a good idea.
Right.
I don't get that. Like it's just a good idea if you want to have a healthy relation. Now, if you want to get divorced and go do your thing, you can do that. But like, as long as you're going to stay married, then you're doing the honorable thing. And that's the right thing to do. And I did not leave Christianity and become an atheist in order to experience that stuff. That was the point I was making. Like it had everything to do with me just not just realizing God doesn't exist. I have no reason to think he does. And now I'm free. And I'm like, holy crap, what have I been restricted from? So before I ended up in another relationship that I'm in now, I got to experience some stuff and it was great.
Yeah. Now, aside from the sexual aspect, like what else in life have you been able to enjoy guilt-free now that you're out of Christianity?
Yeah. So one of the things is not going to church every week. That is
perfect.
I mean, that's gigantic because that was a guilt thing. Like every time you don't go to church, even if you're on vacation, like you're called to go to the Lord's house, it's like that was gigantic for me. Not evangelizing is a big thing, not feeling the guilt of not sending someone to hell. Studying things that don't have to do with God, like evolution and, abiogenesis, how the world came about. Like that was stuff that was going to cause me to lose my faith in God. And so I had to just ignore that. Like science, the whole point of science is just to make you disregard God. That they're just evil. They don't, come to find out that's not the goal of science at all. It's not even in their agenda. It's like God isn't even part of it. Disproving God's not part of it. Like there's nothing about it there. It's just, they just present models and you learn things. You're just like, wow, I can actually see how the world works without it requiring me to question whether a God exists. But ultimately what it comes down to is if the evidence doesn't demonstrate that a God exists, why would you believe that? And yet that's what we did. I listened to it. And Yosef, we do see you behind the scenes here. We're going to bring you in just a minute. So turn your camera on so that we know you're there, and then we'll bring you back. We'll bring you in as soon as that's on here in just a second. So yeah, I mean, like I watched a debate today between two Christians debating about whether or not it's okay to evaluate other positions in the world, or if it's okay to question God. And like both of them pretty much arrived at the same conclusion that you cannot question your Christian faith. Like you're allowed to evaluate anything as long as it's within the parameters of that Christian faith. But as soon as you start questioning outside of that, that's where it's sin. And I was like, holy crap, this is what's wrong with the world. Like,
yeah. That's the big thing that leaving Christianity has allowed me to do. That's not like related to sin. So I now am free to reevaluate all of my positions, whether they're social positions, political positions, or just logical ones. I can reevaluate the world, different aspects of the world. Like, for example, I've changed my entire opinion on like drug use. I used to think I used to read people's stories about on psychedelic drugs like mushrooms or DMT, and I was convinced from the Christian worldview that they were playing with demons, like they were entering the demonic realm if they were on a psychedelic drug. Now I've totally changed my perspective on that. Now I can see it through the science, and I can know that these substances are simply altering your perception of reality and are a tool to expand your mind. So that's one example that I wouldn't have had access to that conclusion if I had stayed within Christianity. I would have been stuck in a superstitious loop, thinking that demons exist and a demonic realm exists, and people are actually entering that demonic realm simply by using a substance. So that's one example.
Yeah. Oh, and there's others too, but we got Joseph here.
Yeah, we could go on all night for that, but we're going to bring in Joseph, a returning guest.
Yeah, and it's pronounced Joseph, I believe. Is that correct, Joseph? Are you there?
He might be lagging a little bit.
Oh, hey, Joseph.
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I don't know if it's me breaking up or you breaking up, but I can hear you now.
I think you're good now. And it's Joseph, right?
I can hear you.
Yeah, how do you pronounce your first name?
Okay. It's spelled Joseph, but a lot of people call me Yosef.
All right. Joseph, I think you may have to go someplace where you have a better signal because we are not connecting right now.
Yeah, if you can hear us, your both your audio and your video are freezing up a good bit.
You're breaking up. I can see you, but now I can't.
Yeah, you need to go. You need to go inside. You got to go someplace where you have a better internet signal.
Yeah, if you could find some better Wi-Fi.
Oh.
But I mean, you were good last week.
Is that better?
Maybe. We'll go with it.
Better?
You're good now.
I think so.
But can you hear us?
Oh, I think you had a good zone and then you're in a bad zone again. So, we're gonna take you out.
Right.
We're gonna take you out. Go try to find a good internet signal because right now it's just real choppy, and I don't think we're gonna get you in a good conversation. So, I'm just gonna remove you from the studio until you go find a better internet signal. Give us a call. We'll be waiting for you here. Keep your camera on because if I see it get smoother, we'll bring you back in. Joseph, welcome back. Hopefully you got a good connection now.
Hopefully.
Oh, way better. 100% better.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do this.
What's up, dude? It's so I got to hang with you once. Ellie got to hang with you again last week. So it's just me and him this week. What's up?
No, just chiming in on the topic that you guys have for tonight.
Let's do it, man.
Well, we got kind of far afield a little bit. Our original topic was about immortality, and we kind of got into talking about sex and divorce.
Yeah, but the reason
you want to talk about
the reason was because it has every bearing on losing eternal life and sins and things like that. But he's calling specifically about that. So demonstrate why immortality is not a destructive lie. I'm guessing that's what you're calling about. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Demonstrate why it's not a destructive lie. I think it depends on perspective. So for someone who perhaps is living a life of, let's say, a very destructive life, it may not be so favorable for them. But for someone who believes themselves to be living a quote unquote holy and good life, then they will see it as favorable to them. So it's kind of like glass half empty, glass half full type of deal. Depends on the person. Who does it benefit? Would it benefit someone who is I don't know, who steals for a living, and they know on some level that's not right to do, and if they have any sort of sense of morality, then they realize, well, if a God does exist, and if eternity is forever, then I probably wouldn't go to a place where people like me. I would probably most likely go to a place where people like me would not necessarily be tormented, although I know that's what the Bible would depict in some cases. But it wouldn't be a very pleasant place. I mean, that's just what I'm thinking. Or someone who goes out preaching, they're a preacher, they're nuns or whatever they are, uh, they will probably feel like, I'm doing pretty good. You know, it would benefit me that eternity is a real thing. So they're more prone to believe it to be true, or at least want it to be true. At least that's my perspective.
So do you think that the lifestyle that you live, you said live a holy life a little while ago in your sentence, one of your sentences. Do you think the lifestyle that you live has any bearing on what the eternal state will actually be like?
I believe actions speak louder than words. I understand that the scripture does say that it's not about your actions, it's about your belief in a being, whether it be Christ or be God or the both of them. Some would say that your actions have nothing to do with your eternal salvation. It's about your belief. But I would say that if you believe in something as a God of any sort, of a higher moral standard than the average human being, then to me, it would stand to me, actions will follow that belief. This
All
period.
right. So let me ask the question a different way. Do you think that what you believe has any bearing on what the eternal state actually is?
Do I think what I believe has any bearing on what the eternal state actually is?
So
I,
another way of
I
asking that is, does belief determine reality?
absolutely not.
Okay.
That would be more so of a faith, but maybe faith and belief is interchangeable. But no, I could believe I can jump off a building and gravity doesn't exist. That doesn't mean gravity doesn't. So I'm not delusional in the sense that, oh well, anything I believe is true. A lot of people hold different beliefs that may or may not be true. So
Right.
that's what you're going off on. You're hoping that it's true. It's that
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
of it.
So the question, since belief doesn't determine reality, we have to have something more grounded than belief to determine whether or not eternity or immortality is an actual thing. So my question to you is, you said that you believe there is eternal state and that actions will follow whatever, but what reasons do you have that immortality is a real thing? What convinced you?
Hmm. So there's the existential uh, reason, but then there's the scientific reason to me, or the rational mind, which is when we look at reality and atoms and energy, they say energy never dies, and we know that to be true. That you can't take something and then it just disappears, and just forever. Like it transfers in some state or form. Even water transfers in different states, from vapor to gases to solid to vapor, back and forth. So it never goes away. It just changes states and form. So if I'm going based off just what I can see in my with my physical reality, my material reality, and things around me doesn't it changes state, but it doesn't disappear into nothing. Then if I'm going off that, then reason would also say, well, then perhaps this version of myself is a sort of as a form, sort of like water is a form of is a liquid before it turns to gas, before it turns to solid. So it would be more naive for me to believe that I am just a solid, and after my solid body disappears, then
So
that would be it of me. Does that make sense?
you're saying that your consciousness, you don't think your consciousness can be destroyed. It when you die, it simply changes its form.
It's state, right, from the
Okay.
current reality material into something else nebulous that I can
Right.
sometimes get a grasp of, but I mostly can't.
So I'm doing this live stream on a computer right now. And to somebody who doesn't know what a computer is, this thing looks like it's alive. I mean, I got a screen that's running. I got programs. Like this thing is a very complex device with a lot of emergent properties. But if I turn the power switch off or I pull the plug, this whole thing's going to shut down. Now, why would you think that your brain is different than a computer? Because your brain has electrical activity that going on all the time as long as you're alive. And when you die, that electrical activity simply dies, like flipping a switch. You're brain dead.
Hmm.
Now, if I can turn off my computer and it's done without electricity, it's dead. Why is my brain any different? When I die, the electrical activity is simply going to cease in the brain. It didn't go anywhere. It wasn't like magic evaporating like water up into the atmosphere. It's just shut off like a computer.
Does that mean that the electricity that powered the computer no longer exists? Or does it just mean it goes into some different form? So yes, the computer shuts off, the body shuts off in death, but that doesn't mean that the source that powered the body or the computer in this example does no longer exist. The what that is, the electricity still exists. It just exists elsewhere. It's not powering that specific monitor or that computer that you're
Right,
using.
but
It's
the
powering something else.
the electricity in my brain is a physical attribute of the world. The electricity didn't necessarily like change its form and just become a spirit and go into the fifth dimension. Like it just stopped operating. If that makes sense. I think what you're talking about in the brain is something completely different. We can't even measure. It's like a soul, and the soul changes its location. But if I can measure the electrical current in my brain and I can measure the electrical current in my computer, and I can shut them both off. So my computer is essentially dead and my brain's essentially dead. Why add something to the brain that is unnecessary, like a soul, when I know how the electricity works?
You know it so much, you know how it works so much that you are aware of it. But what is you that power? So to me, the electricity is simply what powers the brain and therefore the body. You're saying that the current, so to speak, stops at the brain level. Okay, the body shuts down, but we talk about people who are comatose, and but that's still running. But then what happens if that shuts down? Then I'm saying it goes like a third level deep, like it goes deeper. You're saying that that's all there is. But I would also say, well, you're right in the sense that if so much as we are conscious of the things that's working within our material body, that's all we know. So you kind of have to see, well, what is it that powers the brain, which therefore powers the body?
So
Is it
Joseph, does in your mind, in your opinion, does the brain power the body or does the soul power the body?
both? It's kind of like a tango. They're
Okay.
dancing with each other. You can't
Okay.
have, because we know that people are like the comatose example. You know enough to know that they're alive. They can feel things, and most people don't have the heart to pull the plug, so to speak, on these people that they know are still alive, even though all they can do is blink or wiggle their fingers, but they can't do anything else. There's
No,
something
sure.
in there that they can do that knows, okay, there's something still there, even though they don't operate in the manners that we do with the movements and the cognitive thinking and the speaking ability. They lack that, and they lack the body movements. We still know that there's something there. So why do we why
But
do we know
those
there's something
people,
for them?
those people still have electrical activity in their brain. They're not brain dead.
They're not brain dead, true, but there's still something. Well, I don't know. People will
So
say that
okay,
person's
so what
brain.
I was getting at, what I was trying to ask, so fine, let's go with your thing. You got a soul and a brain, they work together.
Hmm.
Does the soul ever work apart from the brain?
Does the soul ever work apart from the brain? That's a good
Can
question.
you
I'm just
remove the
thinking.
soul from the body and still have is the soul what the person is? Because we know that bodies die and they rot in the ground, and they're, for all
Right.
practical purposes, non-existent. Are you saying that the soul is the real person and it goes somewhere else?
That's exactly it. The soul, whatever
So
that recognizes you, that you are who you are,
so
is running.
why can't the soul survive without the brain then?
Why can't the soul survive without the brain? The soul does survive without the brain.
So to
But
ask it another way, why can't the soul cause the body to do things without the brain?
why can't the soul cause the body to do things without the brain? Why can't the soul?
Why do we require bodies?
No, hold on, let's not go there yet. I just want to know why we
Oh,
require
oh,
brains. That's what I'm trying to get at. You said the brain and the soul work in tango, and I'm saying, why does what we can observe is that the brain is essential to the body's functions. Once the brain shuts off, the body stops too. You're adding an element called the soul, and I'm asking you why the soul can't do the same thing the brain does. How come when you shut down the brain, the soul can't continue to make the body function?
Why can't it act independently of the brain?
Yes.
Why does it need?
Yeah,
Why does it require the brain to function? What if the soul is the soul, like better or greater than the brain? Then why does the brain need soul in the first place?
correct.
So it's it. I'm thinking about that. I love this question. Um, it animates the body, it animates the brain, but why does the soul need the brain in the first place if the soul is greater than the brain itself?
Like, is it possible, Joseph, that you are starting with an idea called a soul unnecessarily, and that you already have this idea that it's there and it animates the body, when in fact the brain does everything the soul does? Just take away the soul and everything still works the same. We have no
Ooh,
reason to believe a soul exists, but we do have every reason to believe the brain makes the body function.
take away the soul, and you. I guess you could say that's like AI. I don't. I don't know. I don't know if I met a human being that operated just based on body and mind. And we can dull that aspect of ourselves and make it so you're just going through the
Like,
motions.
so the question is, like, can you
That would be like
verify that a brain exists and causes the body to function?
oh,
I'm going to answer
absolutely.
for you. The answer is yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Can you verify that a soul exists and has anything to do with that? And the answer is definitely no. We have no way to test
I,
that a soul exists.
I don't know about definitely no. I would say that that's the question of all questions. Is it's it's hard for me to look at least at myself in the mirror or even someone else in the eyes and say, oh, that person is just having a bunch of neurons firing up in their brain that's
But it may be
animating their body.
hard for you, but that what's hard to understand doesn't mean something is wrong or right or anything. What's hard has no bearing on what's true. So the thing is, what we do know is a brain functions and exists and causes the body to function and exist and move and do its thing. Not exist, but to move and do its thing. What I'm asking you is, so we can scientifically test through empirical data that a brain exists. What I'd like you to do is tell us what method we have to be able to test that a soul exists and functions in conjunction with a brain.
Hmm. I would say the things that are the things that are tied to our sense of morality. But then I would look at someone like a Hitler and say, well, where was his morality? Right? I
But
know some people will
that's not
point.
a method to test it, because morality, when you look at morality, uh, what people do can actually go multiple directions. We can say, oh, people did this action because their brains evolved to do that. People did this action because a soul caused them to do it. People did this action because they had a gun pointed to their head. Like, you can have all sorts of explanations as to why somebody does a moral act. That's not a method by which you can reliably test that a soul exists. You can't have some evidence. You can't just provide evidence that is consistent with your proposition. You need to have evidence that verifies your proposition. So just saying all these things that can work in conjunction with your soul idea, that's not helpful, because we have other explanations for those same things. I need something tangible that you can give us that we can test that a soul exists. Like, I don't know a way to test something that's immaterial like a soul. Like, how do we test that? What can you give me that we can use to actually test it and verify that it actually exists?
Hmm, I have to
So
go back and
let me
actually
try something
work.
different. Um,
It's a good
so
question.
what makes us who we are as people? Now, my claim is that memory is what makes us who we are as people, because I can't do anything in the world without memory. If I lose my short-term memory right now, I won't even know that I'm having this conversation. Like, I have to constantly be recalling the things that happen to me just in the last few minutes. We have short-term memory, we have long-term memory. My memories make me who I am because I can remember my past. If I took away all my memories, I would cease to exist as a person. Now, the problem with the soul comes in like this. We know where memories exist. Memories exist like inside the brain, because people that have brain damage lose their memories. People that like have epileptic seizures, they'll have tremendous holes in their memory. They'll forget things about their past selves. They'll lose their short-term memory. You do things to the brain and you damage the memory. So the memory has to exist inside the brain. Now, that means that the soul is not the keeper of memory. Now, if the soul isn't the keeper of memory, does not have memory of its own, if you separate the soul from the body, if it did exist, you would be losing the entirety of what makes you you. Therefore, everything that makes you who you are is physically contained inside of your brain, apart from a soul. So when the brain shuts off, who you are ceases to exist, unless you have a second brain inside of your soul that's completely detached from your body. But that doesn't make sense, because like, if I damage your brain, you lose who you are. Therefore, I don't think that a soul can exist.
So I think of that movie 50 First Dates with Adam Sandler.
That's a good one.
I think that's a good one.
Hi, I'm Tom.
She's like, who? Who are you? And I think the reason why we love that movie, and many of us love that movie to this day, is that even in spite of Drew and Barrymore's memory loss, the character she played, we still look at her. We don't say, well, she's not who she is. We can see she has a lot of personality.
We lost you, man.
Hold on. Yeah.
Nope, we lost you, man.
No, we can see you, but if you lost your AirPods, we might not be able to talk.
All right, can you hear me now? You should.
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So like I was saying, we can see that there's a lot of personality in this person, which is what Adam saw was so endearing about her, in spite of her not having recollection of the things that they've done in the past, and knowing that they won't have recollection of the things they do in the future. So and that's just the material part of it. But there's something within us that made us, a lot of people love that movie, is because there's something more about her that makes her who she is, other than just her memory.
So
even though it brings her to.
Well, that brings up two more problems, actually, because she would not have been able to live those short days without a short-term memory. And that is also contained within the brain. And also, we know that personality is directly linked to a physical brain, because we know that for the same reason that we know we can damage memories if we damage the brain. You can alter someone's personality by doing things physically to the brain itself. We've seen people that have sustained brain damage that they completely survived, and they're still able to live the same life, but their personalities were entirely different. So it's damaging the brain stole who they were, altered who they were, completely changed who they were. And if those things, your personality and your memories, aren't contained in your soul, then what good is the soul?
Well, I would say the soul is those things in a normally functioning brain. What causes that person to have the personality is what I'm looking at. Is that is their personality, regardless if they have the material brain or not. Just so happens that the brain facilitates the means by which the material body is able to function. Now, I wish I could actually go back and on this video and reflect on the question on why do we need the soul in order to, and why have the brain at all? Why have that as essentially the middleman and not just the soul body? Or if the brain goes dead, then hey, everything should still be functioning because you got the soul, right? And the soul is supposed to be greater. Therefore the soul doesn't exist because the brain is not working. To me, I don't think that's a clear-cut logical conclusion, but I have to go back myself
Well,
with that very
nobody,
question.
none of us are saying, that any of this means the soul doesn't exist. I think there's a good case to be made that the soul doesn't exist, but I mean, when it comes down to it, I don't think any of us can see the immaterial, invisible, supernatural stuff. Like, it's just, that's why we are agnostic atheists. We just don't see any good reason to believe these things, and so we don't just leap to conclusions and say, oh well, I can't think of any other reason, so I'm just going to pick something called the soul. We just don't do that. Like, we need some way to test whether what we're going to believe exists. We can test a brain, so it's empirically demonstrated. So we believe a brain exists, and it's been demonstrated to be triggered and show that it can create actions and move things and hold memories and even lose memories and still create the body to function in the way it does. So that's all fine because we can actually test it. So I have every good reason to believe a brain exists and in this material world and moves the body. I just don't see, and I think Elliot would agree with me, we just don't see any good reason to see or to test or to know that a soul exists. Like, even if we were to look at, even if all three of us were to agree 100% that there's got to be something more to this. What causes this conscience, right? It can't just be the brain. Like, even if we were all to say, yeah, what could it be? We have no idea. The one thing Elliot and I aren't willing to do is say, let's call it the soul and just make something up. Like, we're willing to say we don't know because we don't know. So even if there was something more, we would just say, hey, until we have more information, we're not going to draw a conclusion that it's this inanimate, immaterial thing we can't test, see, or study in any way, shape, or form, and just make something up just because we've been told that. So my question to you again is, what convinced you? We're not convinced. That's why we're staying with, hey, so far we know the brain exists, and even if there was more, we don't know what it is, so we're not going to draw a conclusion until we do have more information. You seem to have made the leap and said, oh, I know it's the soul. I want to know how you know that so that we can know that too.
I'm going to say something that is a little, I mean, it's funny to me, but it may not be so funny to you and the audience, is that I want to know how I know that too. Because
I'll tell you how you know that. It's called faith. And you've been indoctrinated to believe it. And you just like, well, faith. That's exactly the reason.
No, it wasn't indoctrination at all. It was I was not atheist, but I had just had apathy towards the whole idea. I didn't know. I had the same idea of I didn't know for years until I said, well, just certain things that it's too personal that I can demonstrate why I don't say believe, I say know that there's something that I am made in the image of something greater than myself, which is the soul, the image of, you are made in the image of God. That's the soul. But when I'm reading those words on paper in Genesis, to me, it was just like, okay, that sounds good. I wish that was the case. That's the way I felt about it until certain things in my own life demonstrated like, oh, okay, that's so okay. So I'm more than just the brains and the neurons and everything electrical things firing off and my body animated. Is something else there. Things that I've seen that I didn't want to see. Choosing to believe in some of the testimonials of people, for example, hospice nurses. Not just one, not just two, but dozens of them. How is it that they're having the same similar stories of people, say, I don't know, visiting them? How do you have someone visiting you after that person has passed away? And not just one story, not just two. Now, are all these people crazy who's saying by the thousands, oh yeah, that person's hallucinating? Yeah, but that person wasn't the one who died. That person saw something else outside of that person's body, and they recognized that person to be someone that used to be alive. How is that possible? So I'm taking that information from different people and saying, well, it's got to be something there. I'm not saying that's definitive proof, but it would be rather rude of me to say, oh, these people are just delusional, or they want to see something there to exist. Some of these people aren't even believers in God themselves. Some of them even doctors. They're just very scientific minded, and they experience something to the point where, listen, I can't explain this, but this is what I saw, and I don't even believe in a God. But this is what I experienced. Now you can call me crazy. I think I'm crazy. So it's this constant recurrent thing that I've seen. I say, okay, they can't tangibly like grasp on what that is, like you can a brain after it's been, gone, or a body after it's been passed away. If they can't do it, then, and these are people who don't believe in God, you would say, well, you believe in God, you should be. I can't, and that's the truth. I wish I could be like, this is the hardcore proof right here in front of your face. Here you go, Alan. Here you go, Elliot. This is the proof. It's tangible, but it's not. It's not. It's something that it just is, that you feel, that you recognize within yourself and others when you look them in the eyes. All that, you look them in the eyes, you can see something. It's that element. But
yeah,
if you
I'm saying, and this was the point I was bringing up earlier. I get that you suspect that there's something more there.
Very strong suspicion,
and that's fine. Like,
yeah.
My question isn't whether or not there's something else there. My question is, how did you come to conclude what that something else is? You just drew a conclusion without any good reason.
Well, okay, well, I could say, very long story short, it's my anger and hatred towards, I would say, God, and then myself, and then having a sense of this overwhelming, and a lot of people would describe it the same as a love, a sense of peace that is indescribable, that was outside of myself, that I couldn't, no one else is around me, but where is this overwhelming sense of care and love, and
sure. Do you have the midichlorians running through your body?
I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Oh, the midichlorians are what enable the Force in Star Wars, and the midichlorians cause people in Star Wars to use the Force to feel all the same types of feelings that you have just described, and they can tap into the Force and experience the same exact things you've described throughout this whole evening. So my question is, what makes your conclusion that it's a soul versus their conclusion that it's the Force? And before you say, well, that's just a fiction story, let me tell you, there are people in England, there are thousands of people in England that have developed a cult around the Force that actually believe this shit and think that this is real. So how did you draw the conclusion that you did that's different than the one that they drew? And all of your descriptions sound exactly the same. So why should I think it's the soul versus the Force?
I don't know if it's the soul versus the Force. It's kind of like someone who says that's a tomato. No, that's a tomato.
Oh, okay. So when you're calling the source, it's just as easy. It's the same thing as the Force.
It can be.
Really? Because that's a fiction story. You know that, right?
Well, I mean, I would say, well, where did they get the idea of a force from? Like this power that they're emitting from themselves to someone else. Okay, that's not something that just comes out of a vacuum. I mean, we're creative beings, but we're not. A lot of the stuff. But you know
that the Force and the soul are distinct in one big way. The soul is what makes up who you are, in a sense. The Force is external to you, and you use it for certain things. So if you're saying they could be the same thing, you're going to run into a problem, because now you're saying contradictory ideas. The Force is not part of who you are. It is something you use. So is it the Force or is it the soul? My point in bringing this up is, once again, all you've been able to say tonight is, well, it's got to be something more. And you've just decided it's this thing. It's the soul. And it could be the Force because it sounds good too.
Well, maybe it would be a better analogy to simply compare the Force to God, because God is an external force and created the soul. So if you want to use God as the, universal love versus, feeling feelings through the Force, I suppose you might have a case if you wanted to compare that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess, but then now we're down to, how did you conclude that something that brought the being is God? Like, you just.
I guess what I would leave you with is,
you can't have a force without the soul.
Well,
Like
if I can explain everything about who I am by studying the brain, and I'm confident in that, then I would say that on balance, if we're going by probabilities, it's a high probability that the idea of the soul was simply made up by people to explain something that they didn't understand at the time.
similar to how they thought the Earth was flat until we found out, oh, actually it's round, and actually
Right.
it's not what we thought. So like sort of like that was their understanding at the time, but you're saying, hey, it might not even be that after all. Just like a lot of things we thought might not be like that after all.
And the reason that we have been able to come to the conclusion that, oh, it wasn't like that after all, is science. It's the scientific method. It's the empirical method. Like, the more we learn, the more we understand. And we come to realize, oh, whatever we thought before was wrong. And we continue to evolve and grow. The longer science has been around, the less it's had a need for a soul. It's becoming more and more apparent that the brain does way more than we ever thought it did. So it's really pushing out this idea of a soul. Like, and even if a soul existed at the end, I'll even say, oh, maybe there's a soul. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know. My whole point is, and Elliot would agree, I think, is we have no reason to see one. We have no reason to think one exists, but we do have every reason to think the brain is doing all of the functions that we used to think a soul did, because we have no reason to think a soul's there, whereas we're now testing and examining and seeing the brain doing all of it.
Yeah, it animates the body. My only argument is that there has to be, whether you believe it or believe it's a soul or not, there is something that I even think about how a woman, before she even, I've talked to many women before they gave birth. You know, I ask them, like, how did you, like, some women, they don't need a pregnancy test. I was like, well, wait a second, how do you not need a pregnancy? And they're not showing or anything. They just sort of know within a week or two, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, well, so I asked them these questions. How did you know something that we have modern technology? We have science now, but they will catch it long before they actually do the test. The test is more like a confirmation for some women, not all. If they're sensitive enough, if they're more in tune with of their body and their soul, because you can't. It's like
hold on. Yeah, bro, I was with you all the way until you said "and their soul." Like, everything you described makes complete sense because they're in tune with their body. They have intuition. They know their body's acting differently. All of that makes sense. And then you just randomly threw in "and their soul." Like, what?
Some women don't. Some women don't. Some women don't have that perception.
No, you're right. Some don't. But
so
what
that's why I
does
bring it
soul
up.
have to do with that?
But I'm speaking about the women who do, and in the sense that, in the same way, like I use them as an analogy in the sense that this is going to sound. I'm like the pregnant woman that just has this, like a certain sensitivity to something that I can't explain. Just like those women, like I'm pregnant. This is weird. I know I am, but I don't know I am, but I know I am. But some women just don't. They're like the atheists in the sense, oh, oh wow, it's a surprise, right?
Joseph,
it's not hard to understand how a woman would know she's pregnant before a test, because as soon as a woman becomes pregnant, as soon as that fertilized egg implants, they go through immediate dramatic hormonal changes that they absolutely can feel. So there's a scientific reason behind why they might believe they're pregnant without knowing for sure.
Well, you're still talking about the biochemical process that takes place, like the throwing up and all that. But I'm talking about way before then. I mean, like way before then, as in these things.
Before they're pregnant, they know they're going to get pregnant.
As soon as they become pregnant, it's within the realm of science that they would feel it as soon as they become pregnant.
If you say so. I mean, I'm just telling you the few that I've talked to about it.
Let me ask it this way, Joseph. Let me ask it this way, Joseph. Do you think there's even a remote possibility that what Elliot just said might be true?
Yeah, I would have to go back and go deeper than just my anecdotal experience.
Right. No, that's fine. That's fine. The reason I asked it very broadly like that is for you to simply say, yeah, I mean, sure, his explanation has some merit. Like, oh, yeah, sure, it could likely could be right. It could be possible. And from a scientific perspective versus a supernatural immaterial thing we cannot test, know, examine, or any way be able to evaluate, which is the more likely probability? The one that has scientific backing to it, or the one that requires this immense leap of faith to just be like, well, I don't know what it is, so I'm just going to pick something. Let's pick the soul. Like it's just what I'm asking you to do is step back for a second and ask yourself, why did I conclude that out of all the explanations that have good reason behind them, that I leapt to this thing called a soul that I can't define? I have no idea what it is. I just decided I believe it. Like, why? What did you do to conclude that it was a soul? Instead of just saying, well, I don't know what this could be. There are other good explanations. Maybe I should evaluate the ones that are rooted in reality first before I leap to one that I have no grounds for.
I would have to, in the same way that I know that gravity exists, even though I don't know much about how it works, the inner workings behind it. Can't see it, I can feel it. But if you were to ask me to explain, well, why do you know gravity exists? You would have me stumped there. Should I
really?
know more about?
You can't pick something up and drop it and know that it exists?
Well, no, I can demonstrate that, right? But I'm talking about why it works, how it works. E equals MC squared and all these different.
No. That's not the same thing. I'm not asking you why or how the Holy Spirit works. I'm asking you why you believe it works. This is why I believe gravity works. I have no reason to believe a Holy Spirit works. And neither do you.
Well, I know the reason from just myself and others who claim to have experienced something similar. And it's just uniquely personal. It's not a uniform. It's not as uniform as, say, you taking the phone and dropping it. I wish it was as easy as, oh, we can see a soul exists. Here's the phone, drop, right? Oh, that's a soul, right?
But that's just my point. Is what is the method? It doesn't have to be the empirical method. I'm not asking you to give me the scientific way that you prove the Holy Spirit exists or that a soul exists, because I know you can't demonstrate it that way. So I'm not asking you to demonstrate it that way. I'm asking you to give me the method that you used to determine that it does in fact exist, so that we can also test it and see whether it exists. That's all I'm asking you for. Because if you don't have a method by which you can determine it exists and demonstrate it to us, you can't know it exists.
Would it be fair to say that it's a really, really strong feeling?
You're very intense. It will be, but I understand feelings cannot be the basis in some cases of proof. In fact, it can be in the absence of proof. It can be. I'm aware of that. I'm so aware of that. I can even, you say the proof, I can give you a very personal example of me having a dream of my sister. You say, well, she has since passed away 2 years ago, but you would say, well, that's just you wanting to dream about her. I haven't thought about her in a long time. Oh, well, that's your memories of her. Yeah, but she's doing certain things that it just, if I don't believe I have a soul, then there's something else out there that maybe she has that is outside of her body that lets me know that she's okay. So up on me, long story short, up on me waking up from said dream, what would then make me cry if it's just me having memories? It goes beyond just a memory of something. And I don't know how to tangibly like this is concrete. Me telling you a dream of something I had, oh, that's not evidence for me. And I agree. It's not. It's evidence for me, but it's not evidence for you. It's more like I'm an example of what that evidence looks like for me, so that you may find that evidence for you. Because the evidence is going to be your own personal phone dropping to the floor. Your own, it's going to be like, that's not objective, but it can be. Because if a lot of other people.
I understand, because my father died exactly 1 year ago, and I had a dream about him this year after he died. And in the dream, I was surprised to see him, and I said to him, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead." Now, I can wake up and take that as a sign that he's still alive somewhere out there, but I didn't, because crazy things happen in dreams. We have tremendous past precedent for having remarkable, physically impossible things happen in our dreams. And whenever we wake up the next morning, we always just take them as just a dream. But then when it comes time for it to be a deceased family member, then we're supposed to take it as some kind of a sign. Like, why wouldn't we judge that dream by the same method that we judged all the ones where we're flying or we're in space? It's just a dream. I think I would be an irrational person if I automatically assumed that my dad was still alive somewhere in a different dimension.
But what if you, in asking that question and him showing himself to you like that, and you asking that question in the dream, what if that in itself is him trying to show you proof that, hey, I'm alive? But because you're asking that question, and you say, well, whatever, that's one of many dreams that most of us have. Why this one's so specific? And even the fact that you point to that specific dream means that your brain, you could say, well, brain caused these dreams, and that's true, right? There's a lot of scientific proof that things that you eat, stuff that you smoke, things you drink can cause certain dreams to come true. But then there are certain dreams that goes beyond your understanding as to why does this one stand out? Because now it goes beyond just the brain having a dream, which is true, and it goes to something with like something
now
other than your brain recognize it as something more than just the brain producing a dream. Does that make sense?
That would be true, except that's not how I took it. And obviously this is going to be very, very subjective interpretations because these are happening to us as individuals. Now, I can use the same analogy for God, like God answering prayer. If I ask God for help and, he helps me, in order for me to use that as proof that God exists, I would have to recognize that help as being from God. If I don't recognize it and I just think it was some random stranger helping me, then it doesn't actually help in proving God if I don't personally recognize it. So if I have a dream about my father and the next morning I don't think anything of it, it doesn't matter if that's actually him trying to show me that he is still alive somewhere, if I don't take it that way. And I didn't take it that way. So him giving me that message is useless unless it's done in a way that I'm going to recognize it. And I didn't recognize it.
And this is a possibility. Some of us have had, at least myself, have had dreams that I've had before that I didn't understand until years later. And it can be as simple as your dad just showing up and you asking that simple question. It could be 10 years, 20 years from now. And it could suddenly hit you and it could surprise you. Oh, that dream that I thought was nonsense. It was just like, that's weird. And then it goes to the back of your mind and then it hits you all of a sudden. It could be that way for you. I'm not saying it will, but I can say it's been that way for me. Dreams that I've had that, to me, that's just immaterial. That's okay, that was a dream. And it's So
my question for you is why, what about these dreams and your conclusions of these dreams demand that a soul be behind any of it?
Why would the conclusion of these dreams demand that a soul be behind any of it? That there's something other than myself, something other than people that are loved ones? I don't know how to answer that question. Not yet. But when I do have the answer, hopefully I get back to you with it myself.
Okay, yeah, because you may have heard of Occam's razor, right? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of the term, but you have to refresh my memory.
It's very simply, it's just whatever is the most likely explanation is usually the right explanation. It's the most simplest one. Like, that's typically what it is. You don't have to look beyond what's the most simplest. And when it comes to dreams, what's more likely? That you had a dream about a dad or a loved one, whatever, and it invigorated you, excited you, you heard a message from it, concocted in the dream because it was in a dream. Let's be real. It was in a dream, right? And that's all it was, something that took place in a dream. Or it was the spirit of somebody who's been dead for 15 years, came back to visit you at night, talked to you, and then went back to this place you can never, you don't know exists, whatever. What's more?
It could be that.
It could be, but what's
That's the crazy part. You said simple.
Yeah. But what I'm asking is, what's the more likely possibility? That it was just a dream, or that it was reality?
I think it's situational. I would not, because not every dream, not some dreams will be.
But my point is the fact that it took place in a dream.
Right.
What makes it more likely that it was just a dream, or that dream was absolutely unique in such a way that it was a genuine spirit coming in and talking to you? I mean, just for a moment, step back and just ask yourself, which is genuinely more likely, that it was just a dream, or that it was genuinely a unique experience of a spirit coming and talking to you?
If you had to bet everything you have on one of those two conclusions, would it be a safer bet to say it's just a dream?
Would it be a safer bet to say it's just a dream between those two conclusions?
If your wife's life was at stake,
everything is on the table. Like, you have to be right.
Like, you had to guess right, and if you didn't, she was dead, and you had to get it right. Like, which one would you go with?
Gosh, oh my goodness, that question is pretty loaded, because that's a heavy stake. It depends on the nature of the dream. I mean, if it was about ice cream,
it's still a dream. It's like, no matter how you define it, no matter how many times you say it's the nature of the dream, it's still a dream. It can be a dream. True. It can be a dream that has supernatural beings in it. It can be a dream that has dragons in it. It can be a dream that has me in it, which would just be really fucking weird. But it could be any type of dream at all. You can define it any way you want. The whole point is, it's still, the word dream is in it. It's still a dream. So which is the most likely possibility, that it was just a dream that has something crazy that happened, or it's reality? Like, what? Which is the most likely? I mean, you still got to keep in mind that it's a dream. Let me keep reminding you of that.
I agree, and I would just point to, and I think this is why my father named me Joseph, is the Joseph in the Bible. And I know you guys already know that probably better than I do. Him having this dream about these two people, I'm like, I would assume he's thinking that's odd, but before that, he dreamt that he was going to be this second in command, or this prince of some sort.
Yes, let's assume for a minute. Let's assume for a minute, just for a minute, that that's a fake story, that it's not real. Let's assume for a minute that the only dreams we're talking about are yours.
Joseph, I know you want to say it's more likely that it's just a dream, but there's something stopping you from going there.
I want to so badly lean on one side or the other, but I know how to differentiate when something is just a dream and it's like, okay, that was, whatever, ice cream or some random thing I was thinking about and it came in my memory, showed up. But then there's this that's just like, whoa.
All right, so I'll tell you what, let's do this, because we have another guest. We have another guest, so let's do this. Let's do this. Let's have you come back on the show, because I love talking to you. You're welcome back anytime, always. Go and do me two favors. One, I want you to go and study dreams and how they work, and whether or not something that you experienced can actually be explained scientifically. Or if the only possibility is that you saw your dad in a dream. I don't remember what yours was.
His sister.
Dad.
Your sister, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Or if the only possibility is that a soul of your sister came and talked to you, like, go and just study dreams. Like, because I'm guessing you probably haven't done a lot of research on how dreams work. Because I guarantee you there's some scientific explanation behind this.
I'll just leave on this point. I haven't done a whole lot of, I've done some curiosity research, but not deep dive, which I will do. But it's because, and it's not just my dreams. Let's just say I have some things, I've dreamt of some things of other people that I should not have known. And I don't know these people, Adam from Eve. And I would tell them, sometimes in trepidation, because this sounds crazy what I'm about to tell you. Hey, this is what I saw. Don't be creeped out by this. And then years has passed, and then this certain thing take place. You know what? I'm sorry. I'll give you one example, just real quick. There's this guy that a drummer at a church that I went to a few years ago. And we barely exchanged names. And he was a pretty decent guy. Had a wife that was just about to have a newborn baby, and that was all. That was all I knew about this guy. And so I would say maybe 2 or 3 months after having met him, I'm only going to church every so often, not often. Hello and goodbye is the most of my correspondence with him. I have this dream about this man, and I'm confused about the sense because I don't know him other than hello and goodbye, nice to meet you, pleasantries. And I had this full blown dream about this me and this moving truck, me and him in the moving truck. We're moving things in and out, and next thing you know, I see this big giant. I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it, but see, I can't tangibly tell you what that is, but just thinking about it, a massive bright light and the stereotypical angel that you might see on television with the wings and everything. And I could delineate that it was of a male presence, like a male angel helping us move things in and out of this truck. So it was just extremely comforting, like everything's going to be all right. And I woke up out of this dream thinking, what the hell did I have that dream for about this stranger that I do not know? So I sat on this dream for about 2 weeks thinking, this is weird. That's weird. You going to somebody telling somebody about themselves, or you think that it's about them. To me, it's just a dream. So I decided, okay, I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to tell them about this. And then I tell them in detail. And I still have the Facebook message I sent them to this day from years ago, as proof that I'm not crazy. And he goes, oh my God, how did you know? I said, how did I know what? Yeah, me and my wife, we were in the process of moving. We're having a lot of trouble signing papers and all this. It's just a lot going on, and we're struggling. And we were praying about this, trying to ask God, can He help us get through this moving process? So what I saw was an impossible situation. If it was, you could say it's just a dream, but and if it's attached to me, I would say, yeah, it's possible. It was just my dream. But how am I able to have a dream about someone else and tell them about themselves in a way that I could not have known? So that's why I say, yes, there are times where dreams are just dreams or dreams. And they're dreams, but they can be influenced in ways that I still don't know. But that is an experience, a tangible experience for me, and me telling that story of what a dream means beyond just oh, we all have dreams. Whoop-de-doo-de-doo-de-doo. So I hope that that gives some insight as to your question, Alan. I know it's not a lot, but that's all I got. You know, that's just one example of outside of myself. This is impossible for me to know.
I think that's a very fascinating story. And my only question to you once again is, what does any of that have to do with the soul? Like, can't that be possible in the natural realm without it having to require a soul?
That's you have to explain to me how that's possible. Beyond me not,
why can't it be possible?
I mean, me not knowing him at all, just not asking any probing questions.
Again, doesn't matter. Just because you don't have a good explanation doesn't mean you get to make one up. Like, I'm agreeing that that's a wacky situation, and maybe we'll never have an explanation. But just saying, well, since I can't figure out what else it could be, I'm going to say it had to be a Holy Spirit. Like, that's just making stuff up.
His soul, or whatever his consciousness, you can forget about soul, his consciousness going out and his prayers and his belief that God exists, whether he exists or not. And then me somehow receiving that from many miles away to a person that we don't know each other, and we still don't.
The thing about dreams is that they tend to take place with things you know that you've encountered in the past that you don't even know really well. Sometimes it's like the latest show you watched or whatever. It's not something that requires a whole lot of knowledge about it. In fact, one of my questions in regards to this dream would be, do you remember what you were going through the night you had that dream?
I was closer to God at that point than I am now. So I was more in tune.
I don't mean broadly. Yeah. I mean, like, specifically that day. Do you remember?
No, not that day. No.
Okay. So it's hard to evaluate what actually was going on in that dream because you can't remember, and you have no way of evaluating it because you don't recall, and you can't live it again. You can't recall what actually happened. One of the theories they have about dreams is that every character in your dream is actually you. So that's a real
That's
fascinating
interesting.
thought. Yeah, you should look into that because
I disagree, but that's interesting.
well, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, that's one of the theories that they have on dreams. So, you know, it could be that you were going through something and it just so happened to be something similar to what he was going through at the time. And you guys just correlated. So it could just be as simple as that as an explanation. And I'm just saying, like, because there are other possible explanations as to why these things happen, the dramatic leap to it had to be a spiritual person come talk to me is just unnecessary, is all I'm saying. So anyway, so let me get back to the thing that was. So the first thing I want you to do before the next time we talk is just look into dreams a little bit more because there's some really cool stuff about dreams. The second thing I want to ask you to do is go and figure out what method you used to determine that a soul exists or that the supernatural exists. Because I would like to know what method you're using. And if you can give me some way to test it, I would love to know what that is. If you don't know a way to test it and you're just guessing, you may be determining truth in a way that's not really reliable. So you might want to be careful with that. So that would be my only advice to you. And I'd love to know what method you're using. So other than that, the only other question I had for you, just because I'm curious, and then Elliot can finish out the conversation if he has anything else. My curious question is, if you did not believe in a soul, if a soul was not something that was inherent to you for immortality, like let me ask it a different way. If immortality was not something you had, and it wasn't important to you, like it just didn't matter, and you were at a point like Elliot and I are, we're like, well, we don't have any reason to believe a soul exists. There's no immortality. We're just mortal beings. We're just going to live. We're going to die. And you may not want to answer this publicly, but if you want to, that's great because I'm curious. But if you don't want to, I understand that too. But I want you to think about the answer. How would your life be different? Would you live differently if you did not believe you had a soul and were immortal?
I don't know. Hypothetical. Okay, let's assume I didn't believe. Okay. Would I live my life differently? Would I not be who I am today?
No, I mean, you still be who you are today because you've already been here at this point. I'm not asking if your life would be different. I'm saying starting right now, like today, if you woke up and you were like, oh, well, I no longer believe in a soul. Would you do things differently going forward?
If I did do things differently, I don't know what those things would be.
Okay. That's a fair answer. And I don't think you can necessarily. I'm not sure it's a fair question. Some people might say, oh, I'll just go be a heat. So I just want to have as much sex as I want. I want to do as much drugs as I want. I want to experiment with this and that. Things that I was told I shouldn't do in the church or growing up. Naughty boy. And I'm going to do the naughty thing now. Yeah. Some people that's kind of what I'm asking. Like, if there were no ultimate eternal consequences for actually enjoying this life, would you do more things that you weren't allowed to do? I know it affected me. Like, it wasn't the reason I made that decision. But once I realized that wasn't a case for me and there was no eternal consequences, I was like, holy shit, there were so many things I just went out and enjoyed because I was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm like wasting my life. So it made a difference in my life. And I'm not asking you to make a decision about immortality because of the joy you could live. I'm not saying because that's not a good reason at all to do that. I was just curious if it would affect you. And I'm not sure it's a fair question because like I said, like you said, you can't know until you're there. So
well, wouldn't that be similar to one more question? Wouldn't that be similar to someone who said, well, what if we didn't have a judicial system, a court of law, and everyone was basically living like Neanderthals at the time? You had to basically be your own law and govern yourself. Would you still be the person you are without the law telling you not to kill someone, not to rape someone, not to lie?
Yes, I think the only thing the law does is it helps stop people who are immoral.
Would do.
What's that? Yeah, I don't think I need the law to be a good person. I think I would live exactly the same way today, tomorrow, and the rest of my life if there was no law.
Would you say that? Speak for yourself.
Well, you might not. I would. I would not live any different. I honestly would. I don't have.
But would you say that if he was in an apocalypse? I'm sorry. Would you say that if he was like, you're starving, you have to feed your family, you normally wouldn't steal, you normally wouldn't kill for food and resources, but your child would starve and die if it wasn't for. So now you're having to make a choice. You normally wouldn't do it. So
I would do that.
You would never do it.
I would do that now, even if there was law. If my family was dependent upon it, sure. Because now we're talking about a whole different thing. I mean, when it comes to ethics, this is a whole conversation that's going to go a whole different direction. But but I mean, at that point, I don't consider it stealing. I consider it saving life. So So there's so many ethical questions we can ask, but no, I don't personally see myself living any different without law. I mean, if we were to press down, maybe there might be like little things here and there that I'm not thinking of that we have stupid laws about that don't fucking matter, that I just obey because they made the law. Like, I know there's one state, I forget what it was, you're not allowed to eat ice cream on Thursday walking down the street. It's like literally some stupid ass law like that. I don't know where they came up with it, but like, that's just stupid. But, would I obey it? Sure, because I live there and I wouldn't want to. But would I not obey it if they didn't have that law? Of course. So, yeah, there may be dumb things like that. But overall, when we're talking about morality, good things, bad things, no, I don't know that I would live much different. But Elliot, have at it. Maybe you disagree and have things you would be different. But feel free to end the conversation, because Joseph, I'm gonna say goodbye. It was so good talking to you. I'm gonna let Elliot and you finish out, and then we got Brother Andrew to bring in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we only have about 15 minutes left, so we're gonna take our last caller. But Joseph, if you call back next week, I will give you my theory that I think explains the dream that you had about the angel and the moving. But I don't have time to get into it now, but I will tell you what my hypothesis is. So anyhow, thank you so much for calling in tonight, and you take care. We'll probably see you next week.
Good times, man. All right, Brother Andrew.
What's up, my man?
Dude, it's good to see. It's good to see you're not driving this time.
No, I'll finish tonight. Yeah, all is well. How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
We are good enough to talk to you.
That's good. That's good. Interesting conversation going on. Last week you may not have realized. You probably didn't. I called in. You were talking about the book of Job and this and that. And I thought about what we were talking about after we got off. And we sort of reenacted the book of Job. And you probably didn't think about it that way. I played the part of the guy, the young person that comes in later, Elihu. God played God, did a great job. You, and I don't mean this personally, but you played the part of Job's wife, and the Christians played the part of the three guys that come to visit him, because they kept saying that the Christian that called in before me, the usual Christian response to the book of Job is that he must have done something, right? He did that, and that's exactly what the three visitors said to Job. They said, you must have done something that you didn't know about. And they just went on and on about that. And that's basically what the Christian response is to the book of Job. But the young visitor comes in later, and God reaffirms this. He says, you weren't there when I created all this. You weren't there. I was alone. And basically God says, why are you questioning me? This is none of your business. And that's really the whole book of Job, is to tell you that these things are not for you to think about. Why you're concerned about the things that happen to Job, the bad, what we call bad things, why the bad things happen to good people. God, in the book of Job, God's answer is, don't worry about it. It's none of your business. And that's hard for people they don't like that answer. Whether what side of the fence you fall on, people don't like that answer.
Well, you know why they don't like the answer is because if your God does exist and created us this way, he gave us brains to evaluate himself and our environment. And so he gave us the ability to do that. So we're going to do that. We have the ability to question God. Why? Why would he give us the ability to question him? Because everything that we know about the world or about God, we have to judge it to be true, false, moral, or immoral by definition. So I look at the book of Job, just a story.
That's the point. You're not supposed to judge it. You're not supposed to judge anything.
If we weren't supposed to, we wouldn't have the ability.
But you don't have the ability. This is also what I was trying to say to you.
I do, because I'm doing it. I must have the ability.
Yeah, but those are not your thoughts that are informing your decisions that are making your judgment. Those are not your thoughts.
What?
Oh God, we're
That's
back.
why
God, we're going to go all the way
back
back
to
to
this
that.
from week 1. These are some demon's
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, if we don't agree with your worldview on where thoughts come from, then how are we supposed to even have a conversation? I mean, it's not us talking, right? I'm not talking to you right now. Something else is, because they're putting the thoughts in my head for the things that I need to say.
Well, you said something earlier that might help flush out. You said you were talking about when I first got on. You were talking about how you wish that you would have had maybe more experiences or more sexual experiences, or wish you would have done things differently. But what I'm trying to say is, if you turn back the time and all the other variables are the same, you cannot make a different choice. Now you're talking about changing the variables, and you're saying, well, I wish I wasn't raised a Christian and this and that. Okay, but you're changing the variables. But if everything else is the same and you turn back the clock, you cannot make a different decision.
But the entire premise of my claim was being a different person and going back in time. Of course, I'm changing the variables. That's the whole point.
Yeah, our society is so filled with Christianness. You may have acted the same way. You may have.
Not if it's me, my current me, going back in time and doing it over. That's the whole point.
But you're changing the variables, so that's a whole other conversation.
Well, by going back in time, I'd be changing the variables just by doing that. They're going to change no matter what.
No, if you want to have a thought experiment and say, I want to go back in time exactly 1 year, you don't have to change the variables. What I'm saying is, if everything else is the same, you're the same person. It's just 1 year ago. You cannot make different choices.
That's not the scenario that I was describing, though.
Yeah, I know that. I'm just throwing a twist into it. I know that you were saying that the variables would have been different.
If I turned back the clock and did nothing else but just turn the clock back, of course things would play out exactly the same way. But the whole point of this is, if I can go back into time, the me right here could go back into time and do it over, he would do it differently.
I mean, the whole point of this scenario is that the entirety of the universe would be different at that point. Like, so, I mean, how are we even going to evaluate that? Because nothing would be the same. Elliot would be a different person. I would be a different person. You would be, maybe God doesn't exist in that scenario. I mean, like, the whole thing becomes different because we're not remotely, we're just rewinding. We're adding new variables.
It's right. About whether you could go back in time and have the choice to do things differently. Would you do things differently? Not that you're time traveling and just living it all over again. No, I'm talking about if you had the option, you could go back and change something. That's the entire premise.
You don't have the choice. You're proving, by what you guys are saying, you're proving what I'm telling you. You have to change the variables in order to make a different choice.
That's what we're saying. We are changing the variables.
Exactly.
Because that proves that it's the variables that are making your decisions for you, not you.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, we're not debating that. We're saying we're different, that we would be different if we change the variables.
Yeah, but you have to take that one step further. It's the variables that are making your decisions for you. It's not you.
They did at the time. That's fine. They had every influence on us. Yes.
So are you last week you'd said you wanted to discuss free will. So is this a free will argument? Like, do you think that free will is a thing, or that it's all determinate? Like the variables would determine what happens?
Yeah, it's determined. And
okay.
It's incompatible with free will.
Well, then we have something in common.
No disagreement there, man.
Okay.
I'm on your side.
Right.
Me too.
Okay. Because you can lie on the different points of view in your belief system and still have there are plenty of like agnostics and atheists who believe in free will, and plenty of religious types who they're almost exclusively going to be free will type people, the religious type people, almost exclusively.
Right.
But you might find some that are.
I side with Schopenhauer. You can do what you will, but you cannot will what you will.
Okay, that's good. That's good. But what else? You were talking about the soul. Yeah, so I'm not a conventional Christian. There is no such thing as a soul. Like, you don't have a ghost living inside of your body, or you don't have something that separates from your body when you die and goes somewhere else. That's all just church tradition. And it's really, that I argue against the Trinity all the time. That's kind of like my thing. But this is like as ground in stone as the Trinity is. That concept that your body and your soul separate upon death, and the soul either goes to heaven or hell, or in some Catholic tradition, there's a third option. That is completely made up. All of that is completely made up. When the Bible talks about a soul or a spirit, it just means that you're alive. Like, this body has life. That's their way of saying, to differentiate between a dead body and a living body. The living body has a spirit, which just means the breath of life. That's all that means.
Andrew,
So,
I like you more and more every time you call in, because we find more and more things that we actually agree on. So
yeah.
My question to you, to try to boil this down a little bit, see where you're coming from, what makes you who you are? Is it your brain, or is it something else?
Well, I'm going to go back to what you guys don't really like to talk about. There is no me. There is no me. That's just my ego thinking that there's a me. It's just an illusion. Like, all of these things that I think about all day long and my opinions about things, it's just an illusion, because my ego is so huge. It can't even imagine the fact that there is not a thing called Andrew. It's just made up.
Do you believe there's something after death?
Oh, yes, most definitely.
Does it include you?
It does, yeah.
So how does that work?
So when we die, we die. We go in the grave. That's called Sheol. Sheol. That
Right.
means in the dirt. So and just a side note, when people talk about Gehenna, you heard the word Gehenna, that's an actual place in Jerusalem, right, where they would maybe do child sacrifice or bury trash or bury people or whatever. So it became like a tradition. Like, if you were a bad person, you would go to Gehenna, which was an actual location. It's not hell.
Yeah, they'd probably burn your body.
Yeah, you probably know. Yeah, you probably know. But your soul doesn't get separated from your body and either go to Gehenna or heaven. That's not how it works. So I believe in the second coming of the Messiah. He comes back, of the parousia, second coming, and that's when we will be reborn again. Our spirits we come alive. This body turns into a spiritual body, and we come alive, and then you have to go through the judgment. You have to go in the judgment seat, and you'll be judged. That's what I believe.
Okay, so you believe there's just a body, and the body dies, goes in the grave, and then Christ gives you a new body, and it gets resurrected.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes more sense. And so what happens what happens to people that are unbelievers? Do they just get annihilated, burned up, or do they get new bodies too?
Well, that's something that I'm studying. I'm not exactly sure. I believe that everybody gets judged, although I just read a passage that says that you don't get awakened. But I'm not sure that you can take doctrine from the book of Daniel. The book of Daniel, the book of Revelation, the book of Job, the book of some of the wisdom books. I don't think it's wise to formulate your doctrine from those books. So when the book of Daniel says that you won't be I have to read it again. It says something like the imprudent man will not rise from the dirt, or something like that. I'm just paraphrasing it. But I believe that everybody will be arisen and will face judgment, because there are other passages that say that it's appointed unto men once to die and then the judgment. It doesn't say this guy gets judged and this guy doesn't get judged. So I think I'm of the opinion that everybody gets judged when Christ comes back.
Well, at least you're being intellectually honest about not knowing for sure. But is your source, like your source material is the scripture, right? I mean, you're not getting information from somewhere else, are you?
Where do you mean somewhere else? Like people?
Well, anywhere that, like, outside the Bible, like you're getting this stuff from the Bible. Is that your only source, or do you get personal revelations? Do you make this stuff up on your own?
No. Anything that I'm not clear on, or, if you're in this world, and now I run in maybe different circles than you run in. So I run in where I come across people that study the scripture heavily. And if they have an answer to that question and they say this because of this scripture and that scripture, sure, I listen to that, but I don't have, like the Lord speaking into my head, that type of thing.
Right. So the scripture is you're a sola scriptura guy.
Yeah, except that I don't think every word is true. I believe that every concept is true, but I don't believe every word.
Right. He's a sola summa scriptura guy.
So how do you tell the difference?
Is that what that's called? What does that mean in Latin? What does that mean?
Made that sola summa scriptura guy. No.
Oh, you're making a joke. You're making a joke. Oh, okay.
Hey, Elliot's question is a very good one. How
do you tell the difference? So you've got this Bible here, and you're not getting it directly from God. I mean, you're not hearing God's voice. You're not having your own private revelations. So you've got this Bible, and you say that some of it can be taken truthfully, but some might be taken in a different way. How do you tell the difference?
You test it. You test it. Some of the scriptures can easily be interpreted. They call it hermeneutics, which is interpretation through, for instance, like culture and history of a certain people in a certain time frame. You can understand. Like I said, I'm always talking about the Trinity, or also what happens to you after you die. Some of these are cultural things. If you know about the God, Trinity people are always talking about the God man. So Jesus is 100% God and 100% man, which is a contradiction. But if you know anything about Greek philosophy of the time, that's exactly where they got that from. So it made perfect sense to them back then that there was a God man. He had, if you go to like Hercules or Achilles, their father was Zeus and their mother was a human mother. So this was perfectly acceptable for them to explain things like, a God man. But we can't do that with the knowledge that we have today, because then you can't have two natures. You can't have an immortal nature and a mortal nature in the same person. That's a contradiction.
Right. It violates the law of identity, I think.
Right.
Well, can you give me an example of some scripture that you have tested and you have found that it's actually not truthful?
You mean besides just being added in, that we have records of it that only start at a certain point, we know it's added in? Or
right, something other than that, like something that you believe was supposed to be in the Bible, but you've tested and you found that it's not a true statement, or it didn't actually happen. Have you found anything in the Bible that's not truthful?
No. Well, there's an example. I think I might have mentioned this last week or the week before, sometime when I called in, was that how do we have a record of Jesus's prayer when he was by himself? I'm not sure that the writers, this is another thing that is very interesting in the tradition of writers back then. they didn't rely we think of the truth as it's everything today, right? Like if something is not true, we just throw it in the trash. That's not how they wrote stories back then. They would actually say that the story that I make up is better than the truth. And that was a normal thing to do, where we don't even conceive that. We don't write that way today. It's automatically fiction if it's not 100% what happened. But they would do that all the time.
But they do. I mean, they do have a point in a way, because if let's say I have a statement in the Bible that didn't actually happen, so I have this option to throw it out, or I have an option to keep it as a metaphor, or as just a better storytelling, or just as literature. Well, why would I be unjustified in saying, you know what? I got two accounts in two different gospels. They're contradictions. My conclusion is I cannot say what actually happened because I don't know which one is true. So I'm just going to withhold judgment and believe neither.
Why didn't the writer write it like that?
Well, like, why am I unjustified? Why is it unreasonable for me to say I've got two gospel accounts? They don't agree. They contradict each other directly. So because I don't know which one is true, because they can't both be true, but they could both be wrong. Like, why is it unfair for me to say, you know what? I'm just going to withhold judgment and I'm not going to believe the story.
I think you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's nuance to things. I've been to church.
If I can't tell which story is correct because they're different stories, how could I come to a conclusion?
Just have a wait and see attitude. Don't come to a conclusion, because your conclusion is just your imagination. It's just
I've done that with the entire Bible. I
know that's a rash thing to do. That's a rash thing to do. I would just have a wait and see attitude if I was you.
But if I have a wait and see attitude, that means I'm not actually currently believing it. I'm waiting to see.
Yeah, that's okay.
So I don't believe it. That's where I'm at. I don't believe it.
And that's okay. That's okay. You're right. Believe it or not, you're right where God wants you to be.
How do I know God?
You're right where? Because He can work with you. If you're totally shut off,
But how do you know God wants me in a position of indecision? Maybe He wants me to make a decision. You're saying I'm right where He wants me to be, but I'm not believing.
Hey, you know what? I think this might be a great place to cut the conversation, because we do need to end, and next week's conversation might actually lend itself better to what we're talking about right here. So, Andrew, as normal, I'm sure you'll be back, which is fine. And we can pick up right where we left off. Is that okay with you, Elliot? Because I know you wanted to end it.
Well, what is next week's topic then?
So I'm going to go ahead and say that. So next week's topic is, can we grieve a God who never existed? So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So we can probably tie that in there because we're talking about not.
I have no idea what that means yet, so I'm going to have to wait for your video to explain it.
Well, I mean, we're just talking about those of us who have left faith. Is it possible to genuinely grieve something that you don't believe exists? And I think a lot of Christians will say you can't grieve God because you don't believe He exists. And I think it's possible to definitely be. I think it's definitely be in a place where, after you've believed in this God for your whole life and had all these emotions attached to it, to have sadness sometimes when you first leave, especially over the loss that was there. It wasn't actually a being, but all of the emotions that were tied to that, you're losing that connection that you thought you had. So we're just going to talk about that, and I'm hoping some theists or some atheists may call in who have left faith, and maybe we can have some good conversations with them about that too.
Hey,
and
maybe by next week, Brother Andrew will be an atheist, and he can tell us about how he grieves finding out God wasn't real.
There you go. Well, we can talk about grieving over not believing Scripture too, if you want, or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, that's the topic next week. We'll watch. Everybody can check out. So that brings it up to the Unravelation series as well. How those of faith find freedom. So make sure you subscribe to the Unraveler channel. The info for that, the link for that is in the info below. So make sure you do that and check out my weekly series. There's 2 episodes that release every week. The newest one released today. I didn't get a chance to get it done yesterday for the first time. I missed a Monday. But it's up today, so you can check that out, having to do with this week's episode. So will Thursdays. But I encourage you to check that out because next Monday will be the first episode dealing with grieving God, and then Thursdays will as well. So make sure you check that out. Don't forget to join us on Deconversion Nation on Facebook. We'd love to have you. It's a great place to come and ask questions to atheists because I know a lot of Christians don't get a chance to talk to atheists. We've even experienced that here. I think Andrew, first time he called, said, I've never actually talked to an atheist. So it's pretty cool. And so it's a great chance for you to come over and talk to people you may never have talked to before in their belief systems and ask them genuine questions. So that's Deconversion Nation. And then tomorrow night's Kelly King and Drew Beckius in Life After Faith. Their topic is activism and finding your thing. So make sure you join them tomorrow night. That is specifically for ex-Christians or ex-theists, I guess. So if you want to call in and talk to them, if you need some help getting by, they're the show to talk to. And if you miss it tomorrow, we're going to be here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, as usual. We hope that you'll join us to talk next week about grieving God. That'll be a good conversation. We'll have some fun times. Anyway, with that being said, Andrew, I'm going to kick you if you don't mind, and we will see you next week, brother. Thank you so much.
Sorry we didn't have more time. I was enjoying it, though.
It was, but you asked me to end it tonight, Elliot, at some point because
we both had a long day, unfortunately.
It's already 2 hours and 10 minutes, so we got to call it. But nothing to do with you, Andrew. It's just we wanted to end it tonight a little earlier than last week. So we'll talk to you next week, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. So that being said, that's the lineup for the week. Let's talk on Sunday nights. Deconversionists, as usual, at 5 p.m. Central here on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Life After Faith, Critical Call Thursdays, and the Thought Experiment every other Friday. Hopefully you all caught the debate I just had with James Press. That was a good time. And then I just had one this past week on 21st Century Mind.
I caught that one.
Yeah, did you? Okay, good. I didn't see you there, so
I can't say it was a good time.
You can't say
it was for you guys, but not for the viewers.
Oh yeah, well, we'll have to talk about that off screen then. So let's talk about that after the show. So anybody else? We hope you have a good night. Thank you for joining us tonight, as usual, on the Deconversionists. Remember, every Christian has their own version of Christianity. We're here to unravel your conversion. See you next week, everybody.